Hey everybody. So today I'm going to be talking about why we should, or I'm persuading you, on why we should be starting up debt-free higher education initiatives and start funding or diverting funding into that. And first off, I would like to talk about a fact brought to us by the National Education Association, and that is the fact that a long time ago, well, relatively speaking, we started to realize that high school was becoming a necessity for human life under capitalism. For instance, it was becoming more of a necessity for a healthy employment opportunity. On top of that, it was necessary for a healthy understanding of how to participate in our democracy too. And that is, to me, a really big echo just from the past, honestly. So and I mean, we have proof for that. I mean, the labor force literally just it has completely changed within even just like 10 to 15 years. So to start off, I'll be talking about how and why this would be the free higher education initiatives or funding would be helping not only the college student, but will be helping the economy and society as a whole. But on top of that, my third reason as to why this is good is the fact that the conversation in itself brings about values and ideals that have been almost lost on the American public, at least, and are something that they're ideals and values that we ought to embrace in political and philosophical discussions. So without further ado, let's get into some substance. Mark Hulsman of Demos.org talked a lot about disenfranchisement, and so he, and using the work of the University of Wisconsin's Sarah Goldrick Robb, she presented the data that 12 to 16 students are 12 to 16 times more likely to forego college altogether just because of costs alone. So on top of that, NPR's Alyssa Nadworny also did an amazing report on the Chilean welfare system in regards to funding education for low-income individuals and those who needed the financial help. And she found out that 15% of all Chilean students literally just wouldn't be attending college to begin with if it weren't for the welfare program. Yeah. So non-grads, let's divert our attention to non-graduates. Non-graduates, and the number of them are increasing, and more specifically, the number of them with dropping out with debt is increasing. And the only other alternative they seem to have at the moment is to not take as many classes, to extend the educational process that they need to go through, and to be working full time. This obviously takes away from the educational process itself, and it puts the student in this catch-22 scenario, which, I mean, nobody should be, nobody. We all deserve easy access to a healthy and happy life. On top of that, University of the People brought up the fact that removing the burden of debt on students would in itself be helping the mental psyche of them. By relieving stress of education, it gives students more room to focus on their education. It gives them more mental stability and more mental agility to do so. So that leads us into kind of our third or second point as to why this will be helping out society and the economy as well. So if we go back to the University of the People, they'll help us find out or realize that improving society necessarily implies that everybody has easy access to education. And the reason being is because if you wish to have a fast progressing and healthy society, then you need to have everybody have easy access to education for people, because in order for people to be to provide contribution, they need to be educated and they need to obviously have access to it. And there are I don't even want to think about it, honestly. It just makes me so sad, the thought of how many brilliant minds might be out there right now, or not even might be, of course they're out there, that simply just do not have access to resources that could be providing contribution after theory, after idea, after scientific innovation, so on and so on. We could probably who even knows? Like by the time, like if we have been doing this for like 50 years or so, we might have had like three Albert Einsteins by now, or three additional Albert Einsteins by now. Another way this would be improving the economy and society as a whole is the fact that it would widen the workforce. It would make, number one, it would make the workforce more agile towards, or in the case of economic change and downturn. So if people, or if something happened in the case, or in regards to the economy, people would be able to go back to go to school. They go back to school. Get their bachelor's or associates and whatever they need to. Not have to worry about debt that much. At least, at least not nearly as much as we do now. And they would be able to pick themselves back up and go back in the workforce and start being start contributing back to society once again. So on top of that, creative working abilities and like analytical thinking are of course like they aren't inherent to like a college education, and they are something. Those two are something or things that are developed throughout your life, or not developed but picked up throughout your life and through even high school education too, or while you're in high school. But the fact of the matter is, these two skills, critical working abilities and analytical thinking, are necessary for the modern workplace and society. And it doesn't even matter if you're a corporate, manager of some sort, or you're doing some sort of manual labor. It really is necessary. And the fact of the matter is that college hones and better develops those senses and those skills. Another problem that arises because of the debt is the fact that people aren't really able to, or they are able to, but it's greatly diminished their ability to save and earn and spend, big and small on whatever they need to. So by eliminating the debt, it would be fast tracking this process greatly. And when I say like they'd be able to spend and save and earn, this would be all stimulating the economy. Like, it doesn't matter if they're buying frappuccinos or cars or houses or medical bills, insurance, clothes. It does not matter. It's going to be stimulating the economy, So, and I mean, on top of that, it also leads in the fact that it'd be benefiting the individual in the first place anyway, because it would give them an easier access to expensive necessities after the college education occurs. And with that being said, I would like to talk about my final main reason, being the fact that this is a conversation we ought to embrace. Tressie McMillan Cotton talks about how public good in regards to education has been long lost for a while, and she blames that on individuation, efficiency fetishes, and a little more in a second, a rightward drift in politics. And let's go back to Huelsman for a second. The man I referenced who had the Demos.org article. And he brought to our attention the fact that we used to invest in debt-free higher education actually. States would cover the majority of college costs, and the federal government would step in to target resources towards those who needed the additional financial help whenever this was needed. For example, 20 years ago, the average loan for a bachelor's was $9,450, and in 2012, it was $29,400. There is something that's clearly happened to how we fund, our funding, how we fund, these things in public services and infrastructure. And it's clear that privatization it's just not all it has cracked up to be. And that concludes my speech. At the end of the day, we need to remember that the initiatives that would be helping, the debt-free funding would be helping those, not just students, but it would be helping the entirety of society. And on top of that, this conversation is endowed with values and ideals and topics that we should try to spread into other social contemporary social problems. I think it would really benefit us all a lot if we did so. And so I would like to thank you all for listening to me today, and I hope you are all doing very, very safe, and I hope you continue to be safe. And yeah, bye everybody.